us how you founded Bridgebrook.
Okay. So my wife and I lived out in West County, Clayton and Henry Road, kind of a typical suburban lifestyle, a couple kids at Parkway West. I wasn't entirely comfortable there, but I married Sharon, and that's where her kids went to school, and that's where we lived. But when the youngest one graduated from Parkway West, shortly thereafter we moved back to the city. We moved down by Crown Lake Park on Holly Hills, and we got involved in a whole bunch of stuff in the city because we wanted to be kind of out of the bubble and more into the mainstream of life. And that included a bunch of different volunteering things with food and shelter and clothing, and we got involved in an affordable housing program and called Home First, was now part of Mission St. Louis. But one of the things that we got involved in was a daytime shelter for people that are experiencing homelessness. And basically most of the shelters, they kind of kick people out as soon as the sun comes up. And don't let them back in until the sun's about to go down. And during the day, this particular shelter was at Centenary Church, but it was an independent organization called Bridge Outreach. And they provided them with meals and a place to hang out during the day. And my wife and I would go down there. We would help make meals for up to 300 people and serve them. We go a couple times a month, and we'd make the meals and hand them out to some very grateful people. So the executive director of the shelter was also the pastor at our church. That's how we got connected to that particular shelter at Lafayette Park United Methodist. And Kathleen Wilder's her name. And she had preached a sermon on, I guess it's Matthew 25, where Jesus said, I was hungry and you gave me something to eat, and it goes on. And the disciples go, hey, when did we do that? And he said, when you did it for the least of these. So I'd like to kind of ponder a lot of things about sermons and stuff that I hear, and I was thinking about that while we were in the dining room, and I was the lucky guy that was handing trays to the clients in the dining room. And I'm thinking, these are folks without anything, and they were hungry, and we're giving them something to eat, you know? So kind of the whole idea. And as I'm doing that, I notice a gentleman that's about 6 people back in line who is a African-American black man with very dark skin and blue-green eyes. And I thought, how cool is that? That blue-green eyes look very cool with the dark skin, and I hadn't seen that before. Now the guy that runs a hop shop down the street is the same combination. It's uncommon, but it's not unheard of. And he smiled at me, and as he walked up, I handed him his tray, and he said, bless you. And a lot of people say bless you. But as he started to walk away, I looked at his shirt, and his shirt had writing on it like mine does. And when I tell this story, by the way, I've told it 100 times. This hair on my arm stands up because it's a very special moment. As he walked away, I looked at his shirt, and his shirt said, "Here I am." And I grabbed Sharon's arm and I said, "Sharon, that's him. We just served Jesus." And it grabbed our hearts. And we decided at that point we were going to focus on the population experiencing homelessness, and in particular the population that was there in the dining room at the place called locally the Bridge Outreach. So, you know, we did a bunch of things with them, but after a while we realized that the things that you do for folks that are in a daytime shelter or nighttime shelter and programs, you know, you give them gloves and coats, and you feed them meals, and maybe you get them a cot for a shelter and set them up with a nurse, and they're all wonderful, and they all make it a little bit easier for people to experience homelessness. But after a while we said, you know, wouldn't it be cool if we could do something that would make it easier for them to be not homeless? And we go, well, what can you do? Well, you can advocate for policies, you can vote for politicians, you can give money to existing charities. And it turns out that the charities are almost all about shelters. They're not about actual homes. And you know, if you don't have a key, it's not a home. It's just a place to be sheltered. So we thought, you know, if you really want to get people to be housed and to have a home, they're going to need jobs. And if you're dealing with population experiencing homelessness, they don't have a lot of traditional job qualifications. And we've learned over time, we didn't know this at the time, we've learned over time, this is really important. I hope that people pay attention to this. we learned that people who were living on the street have to learn to survive. And in order to learn to survive, they have to learn the rules of living on the street. And this is not something that you should hold against them, but they learn, for instance, never go to sleep with money in your pocket, because you're going to end up with an empty pocket if you're lucky, and you'll end up mugged if you're not. Take advantage of every opportunity you can, and don't necessarily worry about whether it's legal, because what's the worst that can happen? A warm bed and breakfast in the morning at the Justice Center. They learn don't trust anyone. They learn a lot of things, and those behaviors actually make it much harder for them to become employed. Now, they also have structural problems. They don't have transportation. They may have lost their IDs. They don't have recent employment history. They may have misdemeanors and crimes of opportunity, crimes of necessity that they've acquired during the period of being homeless. So we had to create jobs. Okay, so we're going to create jobs. Now, we had sold our house in West County and bought a house in the city. We had a little bit of money, but not a lot. And I had my own business, so I had a little bit of flexibility and time. Sharon was an executive with Bank of America and didn't have a lot of time. But we said, well, maybe we can start up a business, and maybe we could even start it up at the shelter. So I was on the board at the shelter at that point, and we thought, well, we could make candles or coffee cups or gift baskets, and a lot of the things that we thought about were hard to do. And a big problem with making coffee cups is, how many are you going to buy? Once everybody that's interested in what you're doing buys a coffee cup, you're kind of out of customers, right? So we were stuck, and thinking about what sorts of things we could do. In my family, I'm the cook. I like to cook. Sharon doesn't. And Sharon also has a little social life with her sorority sisters from college, and every 2 years they go on a girls' trip out. And she went on the girls' trip. We don't know what they do, but we know it involves wine. And she was gone, and I'm a cook, and I was bored, and I'd never made bread. So I had flour, I had water, I had salt. I go, all I need is a little packet of yeast. So I got a packet of yeast, and I put it together and mixed it up and let it rise and punched it down and rolled it up and made loaves. Made 2 skinny loaves. Weren't very good, kind of crummy, that's a joke. And then out of the oven, when they were warm, they smelled really great. And I slathered them with butter and I ate them, and that was my dinner. Now, that doesn't sound like it has anything to do with the story, but that night, perhaps because I had the bread for dinner, I had a dream, and in my dream, I was at the shelter, and I was making bread with the guests from the dining room. So I'm kind of a person that believes in mystical things. I got up in the morning and I said, thank you, Lord, I got my instructions. We're going to open a bakery. And Sharon came home. I told her what happened. She said, I'm in. And that very next week, we got some friends from church, Lafayette Park, and we went to the shelter. I went to the guy that ran the kitchen, Alan, and said, hey, Alan, can we borrow your kitchen? And he says, well, if you do, you better clean it up when you're done. I said, you know where to find me. And we got to the dining room and said, anybody want to learn how to make bread? They didn't have anything else to do, so they said, sure. We got some folks, and we went into the kitchen. We made 16 loaves of bread, and then we paid them. They weren't expecting to get paid. We didn't pay them a lot, kind of like minimum wage, but we paid them. And we took the loaves of bread, we took them to my church, and we sold them to the congregation. That became our first business model, which is to sell things on consignment at churches. And we came back the next week and did it again, and every week for the last 14 years. We take 1 week off a year, the week between Christmas and New Year's, but other than that, 51 weeks of the year, we've been doing that. And we went from, at the end of the first month, we had a dough hook. Now we have this building and a shop down at Soulard Farmers Market, and we're opening one in the Delmar Loop. You'll hear more about that later. And we've got 8 bakers, and we're hoping to hire some more. And we've served over 100 people. We've learned a lot. We've learned a great deal. We learned, for instance, what causes homelessness. So I got it wrong 3 times. I thought it was addictions and mental illness. Not much higher rate of incidence in the homeless population is in the general population. And if it is, it might be because they're homeless, not the other way around. And then I thought, well, maybe it's just lack of opportunity and poor education. maybe, and housing is expensive, and yeah, but that's true for everybody. And I said, okay, here's the crazy thing to do. Why don't I ask people, why are you homeless? And I got the same answer from every one of them. And then I was sure I had it. Everyone said it was a relationship breakup. Two people together had rented an apartment. They split ways, couldn't afford an apartment anymore. A young man is staying with his mom. She gets a new boyfriend. He said, he's a grown-up. He should get his butt out of here and earn his own way, or whatever it might be. Lots of relationship breakups. And those were the precipitating events. I go, okay, I got it. We went with that for a while, and then I realized, I got divorced and I didn't become homeless. Well, why didn't I become homeless? Why didn't people with addictions become homeless? Why didn't people with lack of educations become homeless, et cetera? And so we got an answer now, and the answer is that ordinary people, and we've seen people with PhDs experiencing ordinary life crises that don't have the resources to get through the crisis, get into a downward spiral, and they lose thing by thing by thing until they've actually lost everything and they're out on the street with nothing. And so that's how folks become homeless. So we had to work with that and the survival skills that they learned, teach them how to make bread. We had to teach them to hope again, because that process of losing everything kind of drives all the hope out of a person. It makes them think, I will always be homeless. Things will never get better. But when they walk into our kitchen, the kitchen isn't run by the old white guy. It's run by somebody who was homeless themselves when they started. And they get a sack of flour and a tub of butter and a canister full of sugar, and they make these fabulous sweet rolls and breads and everything else that you can see. And they look at what they've made and they go, this is really good. People love this. I made it. I can do something really good. And they get hope again. And when they get hope again, then they're on their way to getting better. So we've evolved to where we're selling through grocery stores. We're still selling lots of stuff on consignment through churches. The shop at Schooler Farmers Market is thriving. On a Saturday, we make a sale there about every 70 seconds. There's often a line to buy our products. We've got lots of opportunities. We make all the dinner rolls for all the big events at the Chase Park Plaza. So things are going great, and we have stepped up our game with providing more services for our bakers. So rather than just saying it's a job and a job only, we've got a really important housing incentive program, and we have been helping them with a lot of the other challenges that they face in their lives. We have a dentist. Guy's name is Aaron Krager. I'm going to give him a little shout out. He has donated close to $200,000 worth of dental services to our bakers. One of the first things that people give up when they don't have money is dental care. And he's done a great deal, does a beautiful job. You like these teeth? I paid for mine, but I got them from Dr. Krager. All right, so Dr. Krager is taking care of a lot of our bakers. I'm, as I've retired from actively running Bridge Bread, I'm going to be focusing on a new program that I'm calling Advocates, where we're going to do one-on-one link-ups between someone who will act as an advocate for an individual baker and help them to face the challenges that they have outside of work. So that's going to be something we'll be launching over the course of the next few months, and I think that's going to keep me busy for, my third career.
Yeah. You make my job so easy. You just nailed all the things I was going to ask you. So that's perfect.
Okay.
And, it's
Probably too long.
No, that was all the things I was going to ask.
Okay.
You just did it all on your own.
All right. Okay.
Something I've heard, and I don't know how accurate it is, but the difference between yourself and an unhoused individual is as small as a flat tire. One major financial burden can spiral into,
Yes.
you losing
Yes,
everything.
that's the one thing. If you don't have the resources to get past it.
Exactly.
Yep.
And then when you're there,
Yep.
that upward spiral it's really hard to get back.
Whole lot easier to slide down a hill than it is to walk up it. No doubt about it. So let me go ahead and share a little story.
Yes.
When I was at the shelter, Bridge Outreach or the Bridge, I was volunteering with a woman named Brenda Cook, And she's looking at the folks in line. She says, "Oh, that woman out there in the dining room." She says, "I used to work with her." I go, "Really?" I said, "You work at WashU, right?" She said, "Yeah." I said, "So what did she do at WashU?" And I got to admit, I was thinking some kind of a service worker, you know. She says, "She was the principal investigator on my grant." She lost her grant. After a while, WashU couldn't carry her without the grant support. She lost her job. She lost her life partner. She had to give up the dog. She lost her home, and there she was sitting in the dining room at a shelter. Someone with an outstanding education, a great job, and everything else. One little thing. So, you know, if you're closer to the working class, most fast food restaurants, if you miss 3 days work, and it doesn't matter whether you're sick or whatever it is, you don't work there anymore. So that's part of what we have to do with what's called restorative employment. I think Mike will talk, make sure you ask Mike about restorative employment. It's something that we do. We didn't know it was called restorative employment until recently, and then we found out that it lines up with restorative employment quite well.
Did you, talk about the fulfillment you get from the success stories you've seen?
Well, you know, when somebody is an athlete, they probably lost a few races before they won them all. And I got to say that when you're working with our bakers, we have people that fail, and it breaks our heart. It just breaks our heart. We have people who fail, and we're able to get them back on track. And, you know, a hard battle well fought and won is way more satisfying than an easy one. But when I give someone their keys to their own place, it's huge. Another thing that's really shocking in some ways is overwhelmingly when people become homeless in the United States, at least in St. Louis for sure, and in the United States in general, they lose connection to their families. We've had visitors from other countries that have come here, and they've asked people about their families, and they told them about their families, and they said, "I don't understand. You've got families, and you tell me you're homeless." And in most of the world, that doesn't happen. Our bakers and other people experiencing homelessness often blame themselves, whether it was their own fault or not, and they lose connection with their families. One of the ways that we know that they're truly healed and they're on a path of healing is when they reconnect with their families and they are proud, when they have the pride in their job and they want to bring them here and show them the bakery. And I love it if they take me to their kids' christening too. Don't get me wrong. All that sort of thing is really beautiful as well. So yeah, it's tremendously fulfilling, but it can be really challenging and heartbreaking at times as well.
Talk about some of your favorite things that the bakers make.
Oh, well, you know, it's interesting because most of our recipes have actually come from the bakers and from customers. We didn't come in here and go to Chat GPT and say, what should we bake? As a matter of fact, we were making nothing except brioche bread and sourdough, and one of our bakers came in and she had a little box under her arm. She said, "I think we should make this." And it was a Krusteaz apple cinnamon bread kit. And I looked at it and I said, "We'll make this, but we're not going to make it from this box." We just looked at the ingredients and we came up with our apple cinnamon bread. That woman's name is Red Symington. Red Symington is doing fabulously now. Her daughter, who was this big when that occurred, is now a young adult, 14 years since then, and our apple cinnamon bread is still one of the breads that we sell. So that one's kind of special for me. Our cinnamon rolls was one of our first products where we were making bread. And we thought, well, you know, if we made bread is the dough in cinnamon rolls. Let's see what we can do. And at first, of course, we made it incorrectly. We mixed the brown sugar and the butter, and when you mix the brown sugar and the butter, when it gets hot, it makes syrup and it runs out the bottom. And we turn them over to try to make it get back onto them. But it turns out you put the layer of butter and sprinkle the sugar on it, makes all the difference in the world. So we love our cinnamon rolls. We've changed our recipe on the cinnamon rolls. Well, not changed. We added to the cinnamon rolls. We make our dinner rolls that we make for the Chase. We make them using a very special formula, using a very special ingredient that we get from A.B. Maury, and that partnership has been really spectacular for us. That special ingredient is natural plant enzymes, but it makes the dough softer. It makes it taste sweeter without sugar. It makes it last longer. And we did it to make the dinner rolls to meet the Chase's very exacting specifications. But once we had that bread, I go, well, you know, we made cinnamon rolls with bread before. Let's try making cinnamon rolls with this dough. We did. And when we had a taste testing for it, you know, I said before that everybody said it was a relationship breakup. Every person, when we had them taste the cinnamon rolls, said, that's awesome. So we call those awesome rolls. So awesome rolls are a favorite. And then a more recent favorite is gooey butter cakes. And down at Soulard Farmers Market, we get a lot of tourists, and they know about St. Louis and gooey butter cakes, and they all want a gooey butter cake. I have to admit, I have a sweet tooth, and I love gooey butter cakes as well.
What else? Let me check my question. I had some questions, but I think you hit everything.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much everything.
Okay, let me give a little more advice, if I can.
Please.
If, when you're talking to Mike or whomever else you talk about, if they cover the same topics, please leave me on the cutting floor. I don't need any more airtime. I'm going to be a shrinking violet going forward, you know, and I'm delighted to speak. I hope that it helps, but that's not what I'm looking for.
This is a legacy that you're building
Yes,
and passing on.
it is, and you know, we're having our gala at the Chase, of course,
Right.
in the Starlight Ballroom, and it's kind of going to be a retirement party, and it's going to be a special day for me, and I will probably go home and cry.
Yeah. I mean, this is like your baby. I mean,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, some people probably work at the same company all their lives. I got 14 years with Bridge Bread. That's the longest of anywhere I've ever worked. Now, I worked at WashU more than 14 years, but I did it in 2 separate stints. It was of about a decade each. So yeah, this is it. And I have to say, I did medical informatics at WashU, and it was really important, and I really like that. This is my life's work.
Absolutely.
I'll miss it.
Yeah. But you're still here 6
I'm
days
still
a
here.
week.
I'm